our last module, we talked about different types of costs: direct, indirect, product period, fixed, and variable. In this module, we are going to look at the costs in our manufacturing process. So product costs, because we're just looking within the manufacturing process, and we're going to look through how they flow through the manufacturing cycle. Now you remember that we said in Module 1 that we don't have to follow GAAP for managerial accounting. However, if it's just as easy to do so, a lot of times we will, because our GAAP, our financial accounts, will be using our information. So in this case, as we follow our costs through, everything that is sitting in inventory at the end of the period is going to go on the balance sheet. So everything we buy, everything we pay for labor, our factory overhead, all of that is going to sit on the balance sheet. Then when we sell our product, we are going to expense those costs to cost of goods sold. Okay, so within our manufacturing cycle, there's kind of three places that costs can be. The first is raw materials. Okay, so raw materials are the materials that we buy and we end up using in our manufacturing process as direct materials. So raw materials can actually be direct or indirect, but for this module, we're going to assume that all of the raw materials that we purchase are going to be converted into direct materials in the manufacturing cycle. Why? Because that's going to make it easier. We don't need to overcomplicate things in Module 3. We're going to wait till like Module 10, then it's going to get nuts. No, it's not going to get nuts. But anyway, okay, so we buy raw materials and we put them into our raw materials storage area. So we're going to have some area where we store things. When we're making cupcakes, maybe it's a pantry, maybe it's a refrigerator. We are actually going to be looking at a pottery factory, and so we'll just have a shelf where we keep all of our raw materials. Okay, so we store them there. So we have raw materials, whatever we have on hand at the beginning of the period, plus our purchases. That's all of the raw materials we have available for use, okay? We can't use something that we don't have. From that, those raw materials can go one of two places. They can either be put into production, or if they're not, then they're just going to sit here as ending inventory and raw materials. All right, once they go into production, they go into our factory and all of the different departments that make up work in process. So again, for the purposes of this module, we're only going to have one department in work in process, but just know as we move along through the semester, you will likely have many different departments. These are all the places where we are converting those raw materials into our finished product. In fact, we call conversion costs our direct labor and our factory overhead. So we're going to move in the raw materials, we're going to add direct labor, we're going to apply our factory overhead, rent, depreciation, supervisor costs, indirect materials, all of those things. And when we are finished, our finished products will pop over into finished goods. Finished goods is going to be like our storage facility where we keep all the products that are ready to be sold. Anything that doesn't get finished is going to end up in our WIP ending inventory. Our finished goods are going to sit here collecting dust, which would be terrible. Hopefully they're not sitting there long enough to collect dust. But they're going to be available for sale. So we're going to have our beginning inventory in finished goods, plus anything we transfer from WIP, and that's going to be the total number of goods we could sell. And then whatever we sold moves on to the income statement as cost of goods sold. Whatever we don't sell sits in finished goods as ending inventory. So when we go to calculate our balance sheet, we are going to take the ending inventory from raw materials, plus the value of the ending inventory in our WIP, work in process, plus the value of the ending inventory in our finished goods, and that's going on our balance sheet. Cost of goods sold for the period, that goes on our income statement. All right, now that we've covered the overview, I would like to take you into my pottery factory, and we'll see how this works in real life.